Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. Our recitation, a-sabad-a-day, composition of the first Nanak in the Rag Asa, and this is the 32nd Shabad in this stream of Asa Mahalla Pehla. And the recitation. Diva Mera ek naam, dukh vich paya tel, un chanan oh sokhiya, chuka jam syo mel. Loka mat ko fakkad paaye, lakh madiyan kar katthe, ek ratti leh paaye rahao. पिंड पत्तल मेरी केसो, किरिया सच नाम करतार। ऐथे उथे आगे पाछे इहो मेरा आधार। गंग बनारस सिरद तुम्हारी, नाम है आत्म राव। सच्चा नावण तां थी है, ਜਾਂ ਅਹਨਸ ਲਾਗੇ ਪਾਓ। ਇੱਕ ਲੋਕੀ ਹੋਰ ਛਮਸ਼ਰੀ, ਬ੍ਰਹਮਣ ਵਟ ਪਿੰਡ ਖਾਏ। ਨਾਨਕ ਪਿੰਡ ਬਖਸ਼ੀਸ ਕਾ, ਕਭੂ ਨਿਖੁੱਟਸ ਨਾਹੀਂ। This passage is very obviously directed at the Brahmin and the ritual of offerings for the deceased. It's very popular, very important within Hindu culture. And Guruji is distinguishing the path of Gurmat. So he begins by saying, Diva Mera ek naam, dukh vich paya tel, un chanan o sokhiya, chuka jam syo mel. Diva, a lamp, an earthen lamp, which is lit when somebody passes on. It's a common practice. But the Guru says, for me, and the reason they light the lamp by a deceased body is to deliver the message that the light has gone out of this body. And the Guru says, but the light of my body is not an earthen lamp. It is knowledge of the self. That is the light of my body. Diva Mera ek naam. And he says, dukh vich paya tel. And you see, there is instruction that goes along with what the Guru is saying. Bani has to be understood in parallel simultaneously at various levels. So on the one hand, he's contrasting Gurmat with existing cultural practices, which he deems to be of no value, primarily because the Brahmin or the learned are essentially cheating the populace. And Guru Nanak, of course, speaks a great deal about it. So on the one hand, he's actually comparing and contrasting, and yet at the same time instructing us. So he says, Diva Mera ek naam, dukh vich paya tel. So knowledge, Naam, self-knowledge, is the light that we need to light, that we need to actually spark. And he says, I lit the light with the oil of my ego. Dukh. Dukh here is a singular. So it refers to the ego, haume, because that is the root, the source of all our affliction, suffering. So the Guru says, the ego is what has to be burnt. And so that is the offering, that is the anointment. So, Diva Mera ek naam, dukh vich paya tel. Then, un chanan o sokhiya chuka jam syo mel un chanan. Then, as the ego oil is burnt, the light of self-knowledge shines within. Un chanan o sokhiya. So the ego is drying up as it is being burnt by the light of self-knowledge. When that happens, the inner mind is illuminated. And once it's illuminated, the Guru says, Chuka jam syo mel, the fear of death or the fear of dying evaporates. Now, how does that happen? Because self-knowledge leads to complete identification with the self. The realization that I'm not the body. I'm the self, which is eternal, which is not subject to any birth or death. When that self-identification is complete, then the fear of death simply evaporates. So, unichanan o sokhya, as the ego shrivels up, dries out, or is burnt out, and self-knowledge is ablaze, chuka jam syo mel, because you see clearly. This is the case of mistaking a rope for a snake in the dark. But the moment you see it in the light, all fear vanishes because you see the true nature of things. So with self-knowledge comes this experience, this identification with the self. You realize, I'm actually the self. I'm not the body. So that's the first lesson. To burn the ego. Then the Guru says, Loka, he calls out, Matako fakkad pai. Fakkad is to make fun of. Lest you dismiss this idea that I'm putting forth as silly or as ridiculous, just remember, lakh madiyan kar ikatthe. You can collect a whole heapful of logs. Ek ratti le pahe. Ratti is a small quantity. So all you need is a small spark, and you can actually burn a pile of logs. So the temporary edifice of your thoughts can be burnt with a spark of self-knowledge. So don't poke fun at this idea. Now the Guru talks about Pindapattal. This is a ceremony, a ritual of making an offering for a departed ancestor to ensure an easy passage for them. And the meal typically consists of serving rice balls on a banana leaf with the Pandit present. So it's called Pindapattal. Pind is body, Pattal is the leaf. Now the Guru says, you see again, you have to pay attention. He says, Pindapattal meri keso. Keso, the one with long hair, a reference to the self within. The Guru says, my body is the leaf platter. Pindapattal meri keso. And Kirya, such Naam kartar. Kirya here is ritual. So the Guru says, my body is the leaf platter, and the offering that I make, the rice balls, are my actions. Those are the offerings that I make to Keso, the self. So the body, the actions have all got to be in sync and offerings to the self. Self-knowledge and service to the Creator is my ritual. Aage pashe e mera aadhar. Sach naam kartar. So therefore, in whatever that you are doing, however you're moving your body, Be constantly aware that it is in the service of a larger cause. That is the message of Guru Nanak. That you're not here to satisfy your petty little ego, but you're here to realize and identify with your true nature, which is the self, and then to be in service to Hukum, to this collective oneness. So my body is the leaf platter, my actions are the offerings. Then he moves on to another example, another ritual, Ganga Banaras, because people go to the Ganga, the Ganges, to make offerings on behalf of the deceased, to actually immerse themselves in the Ganga for purification and forgiveness. So Ganga Banaras, Ganga is short form for Ganga, which is the Hindi version of the river Ganges. And as we all know, it's perhaps the most significant river in India, especially in northern India, culturally and religiously. And for a very large segment of the population, it is a symbol of purity and forgiveness. And so millions will make the pilgrimage to immerse themselves. Similarly, the city of Benares represents the zenith of religious learning. So in this stanza, Guru Nanak is distinguishing once again the path of Gurmat by emphasizing immersion in the river of self-knowledge. So here's what he says. Ganga Banaras sifat tumari naam a-sabad-a-day. So he's talking about knowledge and purification. So he says, my Ganga, the source of my purification, is the stream of self-consciousness that flows within. My Benares, the source of my learning, is the heart, the intuitive center within, where virtue and praise is cultivated. Ganga Banaras sifta tumari naam a-sabad-a-day. And then he goes on to add, caution us, Sacha Navanata Thiya, true immersion. Ja ahne se lag gaye pao. True immersion happens only when one is fueled by unconditional love of the divine. So you have to be motivated. You have to be devoted to whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. So you can take this lesson and apply it in your day-to-day life as well. And in conclusion, Ik loki hor chamchari, Brahmana vatte pind khaye, Nanak pind baksis ka, Kabhu ne khutta sanahe. So you see, Ik loki hor chamchari. Ik loki, the folks who are here in this present world, hor chamchari is the deceased. So they make these offerings for the benefit of the dead or to appease the gods. But what happens is, Brahmana vatte, the Brahmin makes, vatte is to make a roll, put it together. He actually rolls up the rice, and what does he do? Pinda khai, he feeds his body. Brahmana vatte pinda khai. So Guru Nanak says, Nanak pinda bakasis ka, kabhu ne kutta sanahe. It's never exhausted. When grace becomes our sustenance, it is never exhausted. So he's really pointing to the fact that it is not a physical thing, because the physical body is going to feel hungry over and over and over again. So the Brahmin is going to need a lot of rice balls. The real thing is, Nanak pind baksis ka. When sustenance is grace, when grace becomes your sustenance, then it never exhausts itself. It brings contentment. It brings satisfaction. This is a pointer to the greedy Brahmin. On that note, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.